30 more seconds. Thank you guys so much. So how's everybody feel? Good, good. So I didn't know what to expect coming here today. Heather heard an interview I did with Luke and then just said, hey, do you want to come and tell people a little bit about what you told on that podcast? So I said, sure. I just moved to Malibu. I live pretty much down the road, so it's a good coincidence. So pretty much as we go, I'm going to be addressing you guys probably individually, because rather than kind of speak to a camera or to the crowd as a whole, the crowd is really just nothing but the individuals that are a part of it. So the goal is that everyone who's watching this goes away and has something you learn. And I know you will, because no one else is talking about the same things except Luke in the background. So first, I wrote the description in here, and I didn't even read it myself, but I'll start with it to get the words flowing. So the Light Diet, addressing mitochondria for optimal health with Matt Maruca, that's me. So life is a product of the biophysics of an environment, not of our genetics. To blame genetics for health issues is like blaming a grocery store for a bad dinner, when what you can buy and how you can prepare your food offers millions of different combinations to choose from. Likewise, our genetic code is merely a grocery store full of options, and the environment we choose determines the life that we get. Matt began his health journey by becoming a vegetarian at age 8 and has since tested many allopathic drugs, alternative treatments, and diets, ultimately coming to find that the science of mitochondrial medicine is the first to have clearly proven that the root of all chronic disease is mitochondrial dysfunction, the first cause of which is artificial light frequencies altering biologic cycles. And so continues, as Benny said. So basically, let's see. First of all, how many of you guys know what mitochondria are? Okay, so like half. So basically, mitochondria are cellular engines. Anyone take biology class? You probably know it as the powerhouse of the cell, right? You do. So essentially, what I learned, like was said here, is that when these mitochondria, these engines that make energy for our body, don't function as well as they're designed to, our body begins to decline in its function. So think of your body like a big a government, right? It has lots of expenditures, and it needs to have funding for all of those things, right? So if you remove funding from that state, basically, or the government, what's going to happen? Well, obviously it's going to have to default and stop funding the most expensive things or the least necessary things. But in biology, pretty much everything we've kept for 4 billion years, if one believes in evolution, is not unnecessary. It's all fairly important. So when you stop funding important processes in your body, then you're going to start to have problems, right? So naturally, when we live in nature, we're going to have all the energy we need. When we change our environment, we lose some of the things that were given to us by nature to allow us to get to our level of complexity. So first of all, I'll tell you guys, I'm 19 years old. I've been in this stuff since I was about 14. I mean, I've been inquisitive, curious my whole life. So I'll tell you my story first, and then I'm going to tell you about each step of the Light Diet and what you can do to actually improve your life. And if I told you those first, you probably wouldn't utilize them because you wouldn't understand how they fit together. So basically, when I was growing up, I started to have health issues. You know, I was 13, 14 years old, and 13, 14-year-olds are supposed to be, just getting to puberty, growing up, having energy, playing around. Instead, I was, sitting in class, falling asleep on the desk, having headaches every day. I was having gut issues. I would eat food. I'd be gassy. I'd be bloated for hours. And I didn't ask for any of that. That's just what I got, right? And so I thought, as people think, I got those genes, and they're bad genes, right? So what happened was I started, like many people do, you go to your allergist, right? You go to your standard doctor. I mean, if you guys have a health problem, do you first, well, you guys are probably a different crowd, but first you go to your doctor, or do you now scour the internet and look for an alternative solution? Yeah? Okay, so I didn't know that. So I went to a doctor. I basically started getting drugs prescribed to me. I started getting all kinds of things like this. I went to a primary care doctor for headaches, and can anyone guess what they told me to take for headaches? Advil, right? So then I went to a allergist for pollen allergies, dust mite allergies, and so on. And what do you think they gave me? They gave me drugs, right? Yeah, pills, Claritin. Even actually, they gave me stuff that was like horse pill, way stronger than Claritin, and it still didn't do anything almost. So then I went to a gastroenterologist, and I had some issues with my gut. And again, anyone guess what they would prescribe for someone with gut issues? Just Tums. Just take Tums and acids. That's it. So kill your body's natural acid for breaking down your food, and take Tums. And seriously, I was like 13 years old, so I had good influences from my aunt, my mom bought organic food ahead of the curve. When Whole Foods like wasn't really that popular, and Air One probably didn't exist. But Air One's like the LA grocery store for people from out of here. It's really interesting. It's more expensive than Whole Foods, and I can't say the food is much better, but it's different. So it's not owned by Amazon, people like that. So yeah, I went through this process. I eventually saw a naturopathic doctor, and he did a yeast cleanse for me. I reduced all my sugar intake, started taking some herbs and all this stuff, and I kind of felt a little better, but I can't say I did. I got to high school. Again, this was when I was like young, like elementary school, middle school. There were days when I would literally leave school like almost crying, or actually crying, and like throwing up on the sidewalk with migraines. Like, that's not normal for a 13-year-old, right? Why is this stuff happening? And it isn't just me, that's the thing. So I went onward to high school, and then I began to be in a more, high-level social environment. So I went to a Catholic all-boys school, and it was just different. And I was getting more school stressed, work hard. I got straight A's, but my issues got worse and worse as I developed. So it came to a point where I was running cross country, severely depressed. I came home and I had migraine that had literally not gone away for like 3 weeks. So my mom, she said, like, I was literally lying on the couch in tears, like, I can't keep doing this. And my mom took me to the emergency room, and they basically, pumped me with some IV and some drug, and like, oh, that's it, And it was really interesting that night there was like a foreshadowing that occurred when I was sitting in the hospital room, and the light was so bright, and I was like, oh my God, Mom, can you please turn that off? And so it was the first time when, like, finally, I never thought light was an issue, but I was like, interesting, it's just, I remember back to that. So turned the light off, sat there for several hours, went home, and that was that. Didn't really dig deeper. But then I started getting acne, because, people say it's because your hormones are changing and all this stuff that just isn't true at all. We shouldn't have acne. It's not natural. If we don't defund ourselves by changing our environment, we won't have things like that happening. But essentially, I didn't know that. So I started looking for a cure, and I realized regular stuff not going to work. And naturopathic stuff wasn't working for me, at least. So I started what people do. I started on diet. So I started researching, okay, well, my mom said that greasy food can cause acne, and so I'm eating a lot of greasy food. Maybe my gut's damaged, and all this grease is coming up to my face and clogging my pores, because it seemed logical enough, although totally unrelated, and it's not really how it works. But that's just made sense. So I looked up, how does one heal a damaged gut? And that's kind of where it led me. Well, let's see, where did that lead me? It led me to something called the Paleo Diet. Has anyone here heard of the Paleo Diet? How many people here, anyone here is vegetarian? Cool. Anyone here eat meat? Yeah, I guess everyone else. Anyone here following like a special diet? Paleo, primal, I don't know what other diets there are. There's lots of them.
I follow the light diet.
Yeah, the light diet. Cool. So exactly. So basically, I tried this, and going from being a vegetarian, as was mentioned in the intro, I started eating meat. I started eating chicken. I started eating some other stuff. But the key thing was that I wasn't a proper vegetarian eating like all the healthy vegetarian stuff. I was eating what I would call like a shititarian. I was basically eating like pure processed oatmeal, chips, candy all the time. That's like what I lived on. So no wonder I had problems, right? So I cut all that stuff out. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. This is how it goes, right? So, but that wasn't it. It got a lot worse. So I went from the paleo diet, and then I kept having these issues. My headaches, gut issues went away. I was like, cool, I can eat like my ancestors. I can remove the foods that damage the gut, that harm us, and then I'll feel better. It made so much sense, and it's a really strong paradigm that people wield, but I'm here to tell you that it's very, very misleading, and it's lacking a lot of detail, just so you know. And so basically, after a few months of that, having felt better, going like this, I started going down again. Instead of having allergies and headaches and so on, thankfully that stuff went away just from fixing my food, which now I know is 10 to maybe 20, maximum 30% of the whole equation. Light's the rest, and I'll explain why. Basically, so I went to the next diet, because when you're struggling and you have people telling you, well, it's all about food, so I'm still having issues, and then I see, okay, well, what's next? Which food am I going to eliminate? Because how many people know about elimination diets? You cut foods till you find the one that's harming you and the one that's the problem, which it really isn't the problem. It's the immune system, the body that can't function properly because it's been defunded for reasons I'll explain. But basically, I cut out the next food and the next food and the next food. I was on something called the Autoimmune protocol, Paleo Diet. So I was anyone heard of that before? It's for people with autoimmune diseases. So you cut out basically everything that could possibly trigger an immune response. Rather than being like, why is my immune system so messed up that I can't even eat tomatoes or like nuts and seeds? But it just wasn't a question that was on the table. So I didn't think about it. So I got worse. I was like basically depriving myself at this point. I felt like I was 14, 15 years old. I didn't really feel good at all. I was getting tired. Still having some of the issues from before. Then I went to something called the GAPS diet, gut and psychology syndrome, for kids with autism, serious diseases. This woman used like purely bone broth, really healing stuff to heal her child's autism. I was like, if anything can fix me, it's this. So I did that, and I just continue to feel worse and worse and worse. And I was like, why am I feeling worse? I'm literally eating nothing bad, but I was eating pretty good quality food, healthy bone broths, cooked vegetables, cooked meats, but I wasn't feeling better. So I was like, all right, what do I do? I hated everything so much, pretty like where I was living, high school, that I decided to go on a foreign exchange program. Has anyone here studied abroad, done something like that? It's pretty cool. If you haven't, highly recommend travel and everything. It's eye-opening. So I went on a foreign exchange to a country called Bosnia and Herzegovina. How many people have heard of Bosnia and Herzegovina? It's in Eastern Europe. It's one of the former Yugoslav republics. Broke apart. It was a very bloody war and bad things, but I got there 20 years later after the war was over, and people were like, aren't there, is like war going on there? Some people were like, are you going to Boston? What kind of exchange program is in Boston from Philadelphia? But anyway, so, so I went there, and then I had started learning at the end of this period of like, basically what turned from simply just extreme dieting to like straight binge eating disorder. Like I laugh about it now, but it was pretty miserable. Like I would eat, something that was off these diets that were super strict, because I was like food. If I eat the wrong food, I'll be dead. If I eat the right food, I'll be alive. Like, and it's just completely misguided. But we'll get to that. So I would eat the wrong thing, and I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with this, maybe not as far or maybe further. Some people with drugs, some people with food, whatever. I would eat the wrong thing, something I wasn't supposed to, like a chip or a piece of chocolate, and I'd be like, I fucked up, it's over. So I would literally go and like eat the next little thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing, I was like literally spooning like pints of ice cream down my throat, just cause like, it's like, I was like, I fucked up, I gotta start over again, so pardon my language, but it's just the truth. So I just would go off the rails, and then I'd be like, I'm starting fresh, I'm gonna do it again. And people might look at me and be like, you just have no willpower. And trust me, I tried maybe I don't have willpower, but I tried everything for like months and months and months. Like I covered my room in like sticky notes, like saying don't like stick to that. Like seriously, it was really bad for a few months. I was really depressed. Can't say I was particularly like hating life, but I didn't enjoy life at all. So I learned after that period about a guy who I'll give lots of props to. His name is Dr. Jack Kruse. Has anyone heard of this guy before? So he's a neurosurgeon and a blogger who was associated with that paleo diet world no longer, because they didn't like his message, because like this similar message, it threatened their pill supplement, like, oh, you have an issue? Oh, don't take our drug, just take our supplement, this little pill in a bottle. It's going to make you better, which isn't really true. Supplements can help certain things if you're missing certain things, but you don't really need supplements, and often they can be worse for you than better, because they're made of materials that are not usually optimal, even if they claim they are. So basically, I was hearing this guy. I was like, this is interesting. He's saying if the paleo diet didn't work for you, you can't burn sugar. Well, first of all, let me ask, how many people have gone through something with food like you couldn't resist the bad food? I mean, come on, let's raise your hands. Let's be honest, seriously. Yeah, come on, like, I'm not alone. But, and it's tough. And even after all the stuff I've been doing, it's not completely gone, but this stuff has improved so significantly. So I went from this paleo diet onwards to these extreme diets, eating disorder, And then I learned about this thing, which I now call the light diet. This doctor, he was basically saying, well, think about it this way. If you're eating really premium gas, let's say you have a car, right, like that van over there. It actually drives, and they drive it around to events and stuff. Now let's pretend that someone wanted to really screw them, and they opened up the hood, and they poured syrup inside of it, and they, smashed it with a hammer, and then they disconnected a lot of things, and then you started pouring premium gas into the engine, and they're going to drive away, and the car, blows black smoke, and then it stops rolling, or stops moving. Would it make any sense to blame the food for the problem? Anyone? Obviously not, right? So the thing is, what we're doing today, when people have issues in their bodies that are related to the mitochondria, which are the engines in our cells that fund all of our biologic processes, and then we're destroying the mitochondria by our lifestyle that we're living today, and I'll explain a little more about that in detail, but then we're trying to blame the food, the gas that's going into the engine, for the dysfunction. So if you can wrap your head around what I just said, you see how absurd it is to blame the gas going into the car for a broken engine. Is that not absurd to do that, right? Anyone who understands the whole picture, and that's what I'm bringing to you, is the understanding of the engine. It's called the mitochondria, right? So I was like, this is interesting. This guy, Dr. Cruz, he didn't really explain things in such a fashion that was very clear, but for a reason, to get people to be interested, to want to invest a little bit. So I started investing. I was like, I'll do anything. And the coolest thing was he talked about this thing called cold thermogenesis. And anybody heard of Wim Hof, the Iceman? Really cool dude. He's doing something in LA on December 11th. Maybe November 10th in Santa Monica. Sign up. It's going to be a cool event if you want to learn about this. But I was reading it, and I was like, I could burn my fat as free heat to just literally stay warm in a cold environment like our ancestors did, or even further back if you really want to go that far. We don't have time for that. But basically, when the asteroid that hit the Earth killed the dinosaurs, we were all present in the form of a mammalian ancestor that basically was hibernating half the year, and 93% of them, that's probably not exactly accurate, died, but the ones that survived could take this fat burning from hibernation and utilize it while waking in the midst of a cold Earth after gases fogged the atmosphere from the sun for several hundred years at least, probably more. And then all the dinosaurs died because they were cold-blooded, they required sunlight. The only ones that remained were like crocodiles, snakes, and so on. Birds survived because they were dinosaurs that could fly out and get more sunlight, more oxygen, and so on, stay away from fires. And then the only other ones that survived, the main animals, were mammals. And so mammals covered the Earth. In case you're wondering, like, birds, animals, like where that all comes from, that's us. But we have this fat burning ability, all mammals do, from way back then. So I learned that, I was like, shit, I can get an ice bath and just burn my fat as heat, that's cool. So I want to do that, right? Then I learned about this thing about resetting our circadian rhythm using diet and so on. I was like, this is cool. And I started learning all this stuff. I was like, wow, the diet, the paleo people, this guy's really hard on the paleo diet. There's no reason to be necessarily too hard on people if they have good intention, but if they're still selling a false truth that's leading people like me astray, it's good to at least point out to an audience why these people's messages, and it isn't just people in paleo community, there's nothing wrong with these people, they're great people, definitely. I've met lots of these leaders in these communities, but it's the same, anyone who's pushing a supplement or a diet, vegan, anything like this, fruitarian, whatever it is, for health is missing the majority of the picture. They're missing the engine. They got the gas, maybe, and another reason people are under high debate is because if everyone's engine's a little bit different, no one's food is going to work for everyone. But people say this is the diet that everyone should use and it's the best. And people in both camps, whether you're all meat or all fruit and vegetables or whatever, people or anything in between, people are kind of hard about this. So I learned that our modern environment, artificial light, is kind of disrupting our sleep, disrupting our mitochondria health. And just so you know ahead of time, it's like a spoiler, artificial light, when it hits our eye at night, it causes our melatonin level to go down because the blue frequencies, which are very present in daylight, which you can see daylight has a little more blue than the rest of the colors, so our brain uses it to know whether it's day or night. They tell our brain, okay, it's day, so if you're around these lights at night, then it suppresses your melatonin level. Your mitochondria don't get repaired the way they need to when your melatonin level is suppressed, and therefore you have problems. So I went on a foreign exchange program, and I went to, like I said, Bosnia. Over there, they're literally back like 20 years in time. I mean, their plumbing is from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and apparently the country of Bosnia got like a letter from Austro-Hungary, or Austria, or whatever, Vienna, saying, our 100-something year warranty that we put on all our pipes, even if our territories aren't ours anymore, it's expired. So it's just kind of funny. They were like part of that, yeah. But so I was there in this country that literally just had a war. Like the people are split so much. It's really messy. It's really, but I was in one side, and so I was like safe and cool. And people kind of hated America, at least some of them where I lived, because the U.S. like bombed the Serbs and their capital Belgrade when they weren't giving up the war. So, but I was living with those people, and they actually, it was a new generation. They liked us, so it was cool. But the coolest thing was when I got there. To be honest, like the first thing that struck me was the women. And this would go the same probably, maybe for girls, I don't know, going to like European country. Not to say that Americans aren't like beautiful, because we are all beautiful in our own way, but physically, these people were so well built, like so unbelievably healthy. And I was like, whoa, like this is different. Like being overweight was like rare, like it was in the US 50 years ago. Someone was just telling me, my friend who's running our booth, by the way, I make these glasses that block the blue frequencies that suppress melatonin levels and so on, and we're down at Raw Optics, but I'm not going to try to sell you my products because I just want to tell you the information. You make your own decisions. But basically, what I found was that these people are doing really well because they're living in such a way that is more coherent with our life. So what I did is I started applying these protocols, which I'll tell you basically the 6 steps, what I did and how I got better. But I did them. I felt literally so much better, like as soon as the spring came around, that my life completely changed. Like while I was there, I had learned, well, let's see, I can start telling you a little bit about the light diet, but anyway, I came back from the exchange program, so my story, I tried to teach people this in my high school, and they were like, no one really cares about their health or spirituality, usually, unless they go through a crisis. So, like, I went through some suffering, and therefore, I started to want an improvement, right? And that's kind of how it typically goes. So people didn't want to hear about this in high school. I was like, I need to start a business because I want to be self-sufficient. I don't want to be working for someone else. I don't want to be working inside. Absolutely not. And so, because that's really an unhealthy lifestyle, which is largely contributing to these issues. And yeah, so that's kind of where I came to. And then what happened was I started this company, Raw Optics, because I was wearing these glasses. One of the things I did was to block out this artificial light at night that disrupts sleep. And so they were all really unattractive and yada, yada, yada. That's the whole point of the glasses. So I can tell you the steps of the light diet, basically. And even though I'm doing it all the time, I'm always changing them in numbers. So I actually have like a little thing to keep me aware of what they all are so I don't miss something important. But basically, the first is sunlight. So basically what I learned is that we have this natural thing inside of us called a circadian rhythm. And by the way, I'm going to actually use up my full time. I don't know who's the moderator here, but I'm going to use my full time. If anyone wants to ask questions afterwards, you come over to the side, because to get through this stuff, it'll be good to use the full hour. So basically, I was just telling them I'm going to use the full time, and if they want to ask questions, they can come ask after, because I want to get the most info out. So basically, we have this system in us, our circadian rhythm, right? Basically, our mitochondria are tuned to the sun, more or less. Like there's this thing called the Juve, red light therapy. Has anyone heard of that stuff recently? That's really powerful and effective because our body craves those frequencies, and specifically they talk about it. Our mitochondria wants that, but like our ancestors weren't bathing in Juve panels, they were bathing in sunlight. So if you can't go outside, get a Juve. There's other stuff you can do, but we're designed to be in full spectrum sunlight, and our biologic processes were more or less built on that. So the first thing I did was I started to watch the sunrise every day. The best is if you can get yourself to a high location, you see the sun come over the horizon, so it has the warmest, like it's more orange, when you see a real true sunrise, and it's huge benefits because your brain goes, okay, it's increasing in the blue temperature. So when it rises will have less blue, and as it comes up it'll have more blue. That's why it goes from more orange to more yellow. So like our blue blocking lens is actually the same thing. When they have less blue coming in, they look more orange or red, like a sunset. And then when they let a little more through, like our day lenses that we offer, they're a little more yellow or something like this, kind of like the sun. Because the atmosphere is a blue light filter, basically. And that's why the sky is blue, because the blue wavelengths come in, the sun is a white light, and then all the blue wavelengths, because they're the most energetic, are scattered, as if you imagine a pack of wolves running through a forest. If there's trees, they can't all run straight, they're going to get scattered. So that's what happens when blue light frequencies hit molecules of air. It scatters in every direction. That's why the sky is blue. Did anyone know that was why the sky is blue before? I mean, some people definitely did. But I spent like a long time, people told, oh, it's because blue light scatters the most. I was like, what the heck does that mean? So got it. So now you know. But basically, you want to watch the sunrise because it turns your brain on, right? The next piece of the light diet, well, then throughout the day, you know, the goal is to be out in sunlight. Probably wondering if I'm missing anything really important, but you want to be out in sunlight because this basically is like what the Juve does for you. The sun does this for us throughout the day. So as Luke, the guy who's in the back, he basically sent me a picture yesterday of the circadian rhythm. Anyone know what the circadian rhythm is? It's this, yeah, I should have explained it, but it's this biologic clock is another term. That's 24 hours. Circa in Latin meaning approximately, dies, day. So approximately a day. This clock they found, it's approximately a day. I wonder why. Like, because our body has to tune to the sun as it changes, which is the determinant of a day. Sun, basically. So the next thing you want to do is you want to be outside during the day, spend as much of your time outside. Californians do pretty well with this. The key thing that is hard for some people, you never, ever want to wear contact lenses when you're doing this, or in general, especially because contacts block oxygen from your cornea, so it's really suboptimal. Don't want to wear sunglasses either because they cut the spectrum. So this has a full spectrum. There's UV, infrared. When you wear sunglasses, you destroy the spectrum. You cut out ultraviolet, which for reasons I'm really not going to get into too much right now, but you'll get the idea. Ultraviolet isn't bad for us, basically. It is when ultraviolet became more present in the atmosphere 600 million years ago approximately, life exploded in its complexity. That's just, ultraviolet light actually has a lot of benefits for our health, and there's other places you can learn about that, including a guy named Dr. Alexander Wunsch, for anyone who remembers that. I can tell you later about the benefits of sunlight. So you want to be out in the sun during the day. That's kind of step one of the light diet. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, if anything is complicated, please let me know. But it's pretty straightforward. So spend your time outdoors during the day. And then another thing, how many people have heard of the benefits of being barefoot, like grounding? Yeah, so that's really cool. So I have these shoes, you've probably seen them before, they're called Earth Runners. They have like a little copper grounding plug to let those free electrons from the earth flow into the body and get rid of positively charged inflammatory particles and stuff, and there's like a conductive lace on this, but you can just go barefoot, that's better. But you want to do that when you're out in the sun, right? That's like really important. Believe it or not, it was this simple. I was doing these things and all of a sudden I started to feel a little bit better. My engines started to work better because, and I'll get to it, but all this stuff serves to improve your sleep. So you do the stuff during the day that's right, and then your sleep gets better and better and better, and then you feel better and better and better. I mean, how many people have, like, you know what you feel like when you have a bad night's sleep? Yeah, you don't feel good, right? When the other day I stayed up till like 11:30. I'm usually going to sleep like 8 or 9, and I didn't feel good. Like, I have energy. And that day, yesterday, I really wasn't myself. I mean, if I go in the ocean, I feel amazing all of a sudden. I'll explain why too. So, the second thing that I did, because you can't just go in the sun, a lot of people will burn. So like, yes, I'm fairly tan right now. I was there's anyone who, I'm not going to pick anyone out necessarily, but like there's no one in this crowd I can see who was paler than I was when I was first starting this stuff. Like, I was the palest person I ever met. I was so pale, I would burn in the summer sun in 5 minutes and literally be in pain for like days. It was terrible. And so like, well, how do you build that up? Well, one, you start getting the morning sun, which preconditions your skin a little bit, but not just on your eyes, on your skin, to be able to assimilate more light. So that's part of the light diet. I was going to use this thing, but I'm not, but this is good to have. So you see the sun spectrum versus like what we're living under today, plus flickering 120 times per second because of the power grid. Not good. But, so you start, the step 2 is you start eating seafood. So basically, well, you want to just write it out a little bit. You want to eat seafood. I know there's people who are vegan, and that's a little bit harder if you're vegan, is to eat seafood. But there's people who sell like algae DHA supplements. I don't really know about those. I haven't done all my research on that, but maybe it works. Some people claim it does. Okay, it wants that to be there. But so if you eat more seafood and you drink good quality water, like unfluoridated spring water, then you have more capacity to assimilate light because your cells have good quality water and you can take in more light. If you eat seafood, not only does it improve your brain function, because it's what our, the most, I'd say, scientifically backed ideas of human evolution from apes is that we were isolated on the coast of Africa to a place where the primary food source that we could eat was shellfish. And that's when the human brain, with more omega-3, which coincidentally, every single study, it improves every disease, everything, pregnancy, baby development. So if you have a kid or you're going to have a kid or anything, give it a lot of fish, to be honest. I mean, yes, people are concerned about the mercury and stuff like this. There's many reasons why those concerns are not valid. The least of which is that it's like cutting off your head so that you don't get brain cancer kind of thing. Like if you cut the thing that's your main, I'm serious, if you cut the thing that's like your main food source or your brain's most foundational food source that distinguishes us from apes, you better believe your brain function is going to regress to that of where we come from. And you can see that in a lot of people today who are mentally deranged. No offense to people, but yes. So the more seafood we eat, the more we function like a human. Our brains are shrinking. They have been since we left the East African Rift Zone a long time ago and started eating primarily grains. It's true. And it's getting way worse now. And it's happening so quickly that people's brains literally stop functioning before they die, and they have something like Alzheimer's. I can explain a little bit more about why that all occurs from a little more scientific perspective. But so good water, good seafood, you want to put that stuff in your body. The rest of your diet, I really don't like to get into food because then people are so food focused that it's like, oh, he prescribes this diet, so I can't align with him at all. Like, no one can disagree with the light. I mean, you can, but yeah, good luck. To be honest, like, to try living an indoor desk job, working indoors all day. I mean, how many people do that? Tell me how you feel. Do you feel great when you're sitting at your desk all day indoors? No. So yeah, resounding no. So you don't even need to try to disprove it, but you can if you want. And then, yeah, like never watch the sunrise, live indoors all the time, and just like tell me how you feel. So that's really important. Like I mentioned, let's see. I learned about cold. Cold is really important for several reasons. One being that if we go like to the ocean or a lake and we swim in the cold water, we cool our skin and we can actually assimilate more sunlight frequencies, especially ultraviolet light. And that's one of the benefits, like why people love the beach. So what I did is I started taking ice baths, swimming in a freezing river. In Bosnia, they think that the cold will like kill people. Like if you go outside like without socks on, if a girl goes outside without socks, her ovaries will freeze up and like shrivel out and leave her. Like, yeah, it's pretty crazy. And if you go out with wet hair and there's like a draft or wind, like you're done. So that's like what they believe. So like my host mom was like, Matthew, wear a jacket all the time. It was tough, but I would swim in the river like when they didn't know, and I was like scared to death that they would find out like from some neighbor or something, but it was really funny. And for water, I hiked up to a spring. There was a spring nearby, so I was getting straight spring water all the time. It's really good. But seafood, I ate canned sardines because they're inland, and that was not pleasurable. I don't like sardines, but it worked. Sunlight too, going barefoot, that's easy enough. In the winter, I was pretty depressed, I gotta be honest. I stay away from winter still because I haven't gotten myself to a point where I can like kill it in winter, which we're designed naturally to do. But yeah, so the final piece of step 2, water and seafood, is the diet. We should eat what our ancestors eat. So carbohydrates, fruits, and these things, they're only available for a short ripening period in the year. So like a couple of weeks, really. There's a cactus, a prickly pear cactus. So it makes those prickly pear fruits. Anybody had that before? That I didn't know I could eat them. They were all colorful, and all the like squirrels were eating them right outside of where I'm living, over in the Santa Monica Mountains, kind of close to here actually. And they were only around for like 4 weeks, that fruit, naturally. So like, fruit isn't just something that's always around, and our body isn't necessarily always designed to handle it. There's higher amounts of stuff in fruit, which I'm not going to get really into, that is, our body's not really designed to get rid of it. And there's a reason why plants get rid of that stuff and put it into the fruits and let animals eat it to spread their seeds. We're only designed to handle it for a short amount of time. Other animals are not. They can eat all day long, but rarely is fruit around all year, so they're usually eating the green stuff, which is better, but we can't digest some of that. Some of it we can. That stuff is good when it's in season. So yeah, and then that's kind of what it is. So natural diet, so meat and fat in general, seafood primarily, more important than meat. You don't need meat because seafood has all the essential amino acids, but again, even if someone disagrees and they want to eat pure, straight plant food, that's fine. If you live in the sun, you'll do a lot better. Like there's people, a lot of the time people are posting, oh, this person is vegan, they look so healthy, and they live in Hawaii usually. Like, you can eat plant fruit all year round if you want, if you live in the sun, because you have sunlight to get rid of this stuff that's higher in fruits in quantity called deuterium. I'm not going to get deeper into that, but yeah, it's just not worth getting into. But basically, yeah, I could say deuterium simply is this. Anyone know what hydrogen is? It's a simple atom that makes up a lot of everything. Like this wood is largely hydrogen, carbon, oxygen. So deuterium is heavy hydrogen. It's an isotope of hydrogen, and it's found in nature. And basically, it's good for me to mention this. I learned much later on, like the last few months or year. The reason all this stuff worked is because it acts to lower my levels of this stuff called deuterium, this heavy hydrogen that's like, back to the car or the van, it's like oil is slick and it keeps things moving. It's like really, really clogged up old oil, this stuff called deuterium. Fruit's much higher in it, so you can get away with eating it throughout one season of the year, probably, but if you eat it year-round, or just carbs, starch, all these things, we know they're not optimal. There's a reason why ketogenic diets work so well for so many diseases. But again, I was doing that first for a while, trying to go ketogenic all the time, and it wasn't working because I didn't know that the mitochondria can't optimally burn fat. Like actually the last week is the first time in my life I've been able to go on like a full ketogenic, all fat-based diet, and meat and fish and some vegetables in my life. And like I tried the same thing and I couldn't do it. So I learned that when our body doesn't have the right frequencies of light, our mitochondria can't operate at that higher level. So I'll kind of move through the rest of the stuff. Cold exposure, I learned, is very important. I told you about that. You could go to the beach, the ocean, take ice baths. It does many things, but it causes, like I said earlier, it makes our mitochondria start burning fat and releasing that energy as heat. So this is very good because it basically it's like a kickstart. You splash cold water on your face. There's a reason that works to really wake us up. It's because of this mammalian dive reflex. Our ancestors, apparently, this one that survived the dinosaur extinction event, they had to dive into frigid Arctic water to catch fish. And so our brain would be activated to start really revving up the engine just from the splash on the face of the water. So that's why if you're sitting in cold water taking an ice bath and you kind of lay down, it won't really get you going. But if you I go head first into ice baths, on my knees, because then you get going and you get out and you're like, so you feel like you're in a hot tub all of a sudden if you've done it enough. Not like a hot tub, but close enough. So let's see. The next thing I learned about, very important, but I don't really have too much time. I have 8 minutes, maybe a little more, is basically avoiding electromagnetic fields. So has anyone heard about electromagnetic radiation and harmful effects of this? All right, so basically the stuff our cell phones emit, all this stuff. This is also light. It's technically not light because light's what's in the visible range from 300 nanometers to 700, 800 nanometers. That's light. Electromagnetic fields is the rest of everything, but it's the same thing. Functionally, we just can't see it. Some animals can. One of the reasons bees, my theory based on all the research is bees aren't dying because of GMOs. Well, that's not good. That's a huge part. But all the cell towers that are disrupting their natural methods for finding their way, possibly a bigger influence, but all very relevant nonetheless. So I learned about that, and I was reading there's a book called Going Somewhere. I'm recording this, so anyone writes this down. Going Somewhere. It's by a guy who's a physicist. But basically, he was fighting, let's say, against power line companies a long time ago when they were building high voltage transmission lines. And because the power, their view was if we can build power, we're going to provide more jobs and provide more everything. And so they basically went to court several times. The courts often ruled in favor of this guy and the people who he was defending as a scientist, but they lost because money talks, basically. And that's kind of how this thing started. This is why cell phones are legal. Also because the Navy needed to use radar. I hope no one kills me, but honestly, this is seriously, because this I'm serious, because the Navy classified several large studies that were done by several researchers over a long period of time on the health effects of radar. Namely, in World War II, guys knew that they could put their junk up against one of these big radar emitter things on the Hawaiian Islands, and they would be able to go out and sleep with women, no protection, and not get anyone pregnant. Seriously, it's written about it. Because that stuff is not good. And if you have a cell phone in your pocket all the time, much weaker than radar that's going all the way across the Pacific Ocean, but it ain't good, to be honest. So, and same for girls, computers on your lap, none of that stuff's good. So I learned to avoid this stuff. I started avoiding it. It's pretty simple. You keep your phone on airplane mode. You don't be available for other people all the time. You turn it off every once in a while. And when you do, you keep it away from you because it's blasting looking for a tower. If you don't have service right now, your phone's just literally wasting all its battery trying to find a tower, and you're just getting all of that radiation in your body. It's not good, but that's probably most people here. So turn it on airplane mode if you don't have signal because it's just searching harder for a tower. Turn your Wi-Fi off while you sleep, turn the circuit breaker off, even better, so you have no electricity. If you have neighbors, if you live in a big city in a high population density area, you're fine for now. When they start rolling out this 5G technology that's going to allow for self-driving cars and VR headsets all day long for everyone, you might want to consider moving because those are millimeter waves. I'm completely serious. Yeah, no, but it's true. Yeah, but it's true. So you move because if you read the research. I mean, you don't have to do whatever you want, but millimeter waves are what they use in the airport scanners now, where you put your hands up and do all this stuff. And if you're exposed to that all the time from these new 5G antennas that are going up, which you can see if you start looking, they're little brown or white boxes attached to telephone poles all over Mulholland Highway, everywhere. There's a bajillion of them on Malibu Canyon, Encino Canyon Road, Topanga Canyon, every single canyon. And there's guys on top of lampposts, these little cylindrical things in Santa Monica and so on. I just saw one last night. I was watching the sunset. I was like, fuck, I'm standing right next to this thing. I need to leave. So anyway, so that's stuff like that. I mean, yes, moving, it's going to get harder, and it's actually kind of creepy or sad that this has come to such an extreme since this guy who wrote this book I mentioned was like fighting against power companies. Now we have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, all these things. And again, because the Navy had to bury the evidence to make sure that people didn't doubt the safety of radar, we live with the consequences today, and it's extremely lucrative business. So but do your own research. Don't trust me on any of these things. I'm serious. So then the final thing is, well, actually second to last, so step 5 of the light diet is sunset, darkness, and sleep. So basically what you do, you watch sunrise, you spend your day outside, then in the evening, you watch the sunset. So pretty much every day, I watch sunrise from a place called God's Seat in, it's technically in Malibu. It's on Yerba Buena Road. If anyone hasn't heard of it, come join me sometime. It's beautiful. You see all of the entire valley. You watch it rise on the Los Angeles mountains over Thousand Oaks, Calabasas, Westlake Village. It's beautiful. And then the sunset on the Pacific Ocean is godly, to be honest. So every day you do that. Or you don't need to, like I actually didn't do that religiously. I would just go out, and even if I woke up at 8 or 9, I would get the sun. But since doing it properly from sunrise, it's just like, oh my gosh, you feel better. You sleep, you go to sleep. After like 3 months of trying to fix my circadian rhythm after traveling in Europe for all of July, I finally am starting to wake up like naturally at sunrise without an alarm. I'm very proud of that, because like when you fly and you travel, it's really destructive. But I love it so much that I'll do it anyway. So yeah, darkness comes, and then this is where these glasses came in handy. Like, so I basically told you all the stuff I was doing when I went on this exchange program. When I came back, I looked so different. I grew out my hair, I was blonder, I was tan, stronger, I was super skinny and pale before. My family was like, what the fuck? Like, but specifically one of my teachers who suggested I go on this program, she didn't even recognize me. I walked up to her, I was like, Mr. Ward, she was like, and then like 30 seconds later she got it. But it was kind of surprising that that I changed that much. I didn't realize it. So that was really cool. Then so darkness comes around, and then basically to fix the circadian rhythm, all going back to optimizing your sleep more or less, you want to block or avoid all artificial light, because all of it contains blue frequencies. So blue frequencies, like I said, our brain looks for them to wake up. Cool white LEDs, which is like phones, computers, TVs, laptops, basically everything except fluorescents, which are also equally bad or worse, are really bad. They're high in blue light because it's more energy efficient. However, it is not, because all the money and energy we're spending on people dying and healthcare and all this stuff, it's way not saving energy. So if you get those like really cool incandescent bulbs, they're much better. The ones that are Edison lights that they have in restaurants that look really cool. They have a cool filament and so on, but you don't want the LED ones. You want the incandescent ones, or tungsten or better. Better is even orange or red light bulbs, and even better is darkness, no artificial light at all. So during the day you use natural light to see, and when the sun sets you don't use any. So I mean, I have a little red headlamp, just a camping headlamp that has a red function. I gotta like make my own and sell them, because I'd sell a lot, I think, but basically you turn it, it's a red light, and I read with it, and I don't stare into screens. I try not to, I do sometimes, but after sunset, so even after like it's 6:15 right now, 6:22 I think today, so catch me on like Zuma Beach or something. But basically, you don't want to use screens after dark, because those are going to disrupt your sleep if you're looking right into that. So that's very, very powerful, because your brain, just like it wakes up, sees the declining blue content of the sun spectrum, and then you get tired. Only if you're avoiding artificial light after dark. So I was wearing these glasses called blue blockers that block artificial light. They cut out the blue frequencies that wake us up. And then I started sleeping really well, because I didn't have to necessarily avoid all the light. You just hit that, yeah, so pretty much at the end of my time, but got a little more, I think like 5 minutes, because I left some time for questions. But basically, blue blockers work really well, and that's why when they were super ugly, and I was wearing these ugly construction goggles, which is like what people were wearing in these various health communities, I was like, this isn't cool, because I was the only person in this whole community I knew of doing this stuff who was wearing, who was 18 or 16 at the time. So it was pretty pretty unattractive and unappealing to be wearing like goggles. It's weird. It's kind of different enough to wear an orange or a red lens. To wear goggles that are like complete construction goggles, it's just not acceptable. And it's you know, yeah, you can make it a conversation starter, but it's better to have something that looks decent, to be honest. So that's what I started doing. I started making these glasses, or really made a pair for myself, and then the guy again, Luke Story, maybe know me as a podcast, he wanted some, so then I was like, shit, I could do it for you. I know how to tint the lenses and all this stuff, put the frame together, and so I started making them, and it was a year and a month or two ago, and then it just started growing, and now we have Raw Optics, and we're down there, and you can come ask more questions afterwards. But that was really cool, fun process. I traveled around Europe after graduating high school. Of course, like I said, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to be inside. I don't want to be around all this electromagnetic pollution. I'd rather figure something else out, rather be able to work outside. I don't want to be someone else's employee, which is hard because, like, you know, it's kind of stressful being like 19 and doing your own thing and like being financially depending on yourself. But I've gotten hooked up with some really cool people, so I'm actually not complaining. Like someone really cool in Malibu, like, basically invited me to come out and work with him and gave me a place to stay, so pretty stoked about that, but that's why I'm out here. So, and then sleep. So yeah, you get your hours of darkness. If you do it properly, you get a lot of sun during the day, which is how we build our melatonin level. It's also how we build dopamine, which makes us think well and see trends. It also makes us build our serotonin level, and yeah, like I said, melatonin. This is the from the UV energy going through our eye. This is why we shouldn't wear sunglasses. We catalyze the reactions of something called tryptophan to turn into melatonin and serotonin, and tyrosine to turn into dopamine. So you need sunlight. It's very good for us. Contacts, sunglasses, even glasses, you want to like let the sun hit your eyes, like put them down. I'm going to try to invent or reinvent lenses that let the full spectrum pass through. They're really not available for sale right now, but that would be a really cool product that might take the world by storm as people learn about the importance of light. So you go to sleep, naturally you'll fall asleep pretty quickly. If you spend a day on the beach ever, you're just like, oh, you feel so good, you fall asleep like right away because you have a lot of melatonin built up. And then, yeah, you secrete it, you release it with the absence of blue frequencies. So darkness will help you get more tired fast. Red lights will disrupt your sleep less. Any other lights will disrupt your sleep. You'll still get tired, you'll still sleep, your sleep will be much lower quality because you have less melatonin secreted and so on. You won't get the surge of prolactin, which is natural for our body. You won't get a surge of growth hormone, which we're naturally supposed to get after certain hours of darkness and going to sleep and so on. And that's all because of this blue spike found in the spectral curve of LEDs and all the stuff we're looking at. So there's simple stuff like I have a YouTube video, show you how to take blue light out of your phone, and we can talk about that stuff. But I actually should answer questions, but so let's see. One more thing, simple enough, is I couldn't keep this out of light diet, even though it's not, it is directly related. I don't know how to phrase it, but I just wrote it as like, you gotta want to be better. And if you don't want to be better, like you don't truly really want to be better. Like I always growing up, I'm lucky or whatever. He doesn't believe in luck, my friend here. I have the cards from the universe. I played in such a way that I have this drive to be better, and I'm not gonna get rid of it. And that's what kind of pushed me to just keep going and keep going and keep going. So with that, you know, things for me that help, like Qigong meditation. Qigong is like an energy practice from China. People like yoga, people like meditation, transcendental meditation, people like, I don't know, anything. Like take time for yourself, go and relax and hang out and like let yourself sit in the sun all day, because that's like really important and that's what we're here to do. And I actually kind of lost that because I've been working so much, and my friend's like, dude, you got to build a free day in your schedule. I was like, free day? What do I do? Like, go to the beach and lay in the sun? Like, that's such a waste of time. And I was like, I realized that that's actually really important to do. I was like, I have no life. All I do is work all the time and read about this stuff. But no, so you got to do stuff and hang out with your friends and whatever. You know, like I said, I'm 19, I'm learning, but this is very powerful. What I just told you, seriously, is the future. I'm not joking. It's all of the pieces of society, all the news articles. Every day someone sends me a news article. Like, dude, this thing about blue light, this thing about EMFs, this thing about blue blocking glasses. Oh, sunlight's good for us? Huh? Like, you know, all this stuff. My mom's starting to like read from some like Dr. Mercola or someone, all this stuff that I told her like 4 years ago. She's like, Matt, like, look. And I was like, I told you. And so, I mean, again, I don't know all the answers, of course. I don't think anyone does, but this is much more a whole picture of human health and biology. So time, what are we looking at? Okay, a couple minutes. And then is there time for questions or probably not? Not really. Okay, so then that's pretty much everything. I mean, I could tell you about these scientists who research mitochondria who have proven, this is the only one that's really important, who have proven that all modern diseases that are really harming people, so cancer, yes, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, obesity, autoimmune disease, autism, if I didn't say that, these things occur because the mitochondria, which are the engines that make energy, and keep in mind, there's one engine for every car. For every human cell, there's 1,000 mitochondria. You have 100 trillion cells, do the math. I think it's like a quadrillion mitochondria in the average adult human. You have a lot of these engines, right? Because they're the size of bacteria, of which you could fit thousands or hundreds at least in our human cells, which are much bigger. So this is pretty much the light diet for you. Like I said, this researcher guy, Dr. Doug Wallace at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, on the path to win a Nobel Prize in medicine for his research. He's already won several other awards. He's literally shown that when the mitochondria in the brain don't work well, for many reasons, but they can be improved significantly, if not fixed completely, by what I've mentioned. If you're really sick, it's going to require more. We could talk about that. But prevented for sure by living this way. In the brain, mitochondrial dysfunction currently manifests primarily as dementia and Alzheimer's disease. In the heart, it's heart disease. In the pancreas, it can be, pancreatic cancer or like some kind of health issue related to that. So that's kind of what this research is showing, and this is why it's important to take care of your engines, your mitochondria, and to kind of just live the light diet. It'll make you feel really good, if nothing else, I can tell you that. So thank you so much for listening, guys. I really appreciate your attention. Yeah. And So do with it as you wish.